Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Luke Grand speaking from Practical Farmers of Iowa here in central Iowa. I'm so glad to have you all here tonight. We're excited to be visiting about this topic of high concern for folks, these high tunnels around the state of Iowa and around the country. Great opportunity to increase income, and we want to get to your questions and get to the topic right away. Right before that, I wanted to introduce and set the scene for folks that are new to the Farminars. Just want to let you know where we're coming from with Practical Farmers of Iowa. 42% of our farmers in Iowa tell us that they will retire, and they're going to retire in the next 5 years, if you believe it, 42% of them. So that is a top concern of our membership, top concern of our farmers, because there's an opportunity for beginning farmers to have access to land as a result of that. So we want to make sure that beginning farmers have all the skills and all the mentorship they need to be successful. And one way we intend to do that is through these online seminars called Farminars. We've been doing them since the fall of 2009. And our good friend Adam Montri has been joining us from Michigan. This is his third year now on our Farminar series. We believe that we can ensure the success of the next generation. We believe we can ensure their success. One example, the Rosemans here in western Iowa. We've been working with their family for years, decades even, Ron and Maria, some of the first members of our farmer-based membership organization. And they're bringing back the next generation to their farm and adding new enterprises and a whole bunch of other things. And we intend to share their stories and their lessons with everyone on our Farminars. Ron will be speaking this winter coming up. We've got a great series. We've had a great series this fall, coming into the final one of our fall series, the 27th tonight. And we want to acknowledge the support for this. The funding comes from the really well done USDA-funded Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program, which is based out of the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And our grant number is on the screen there. It's a 3-year grant, and we'll continue this through 2012. And we'd hope to apply again and continue these in the future and make sure everybody's be able to learn from each other. One way we do that is these Farminars. We've got a whole another lineup coming in winter, so don't be sad about losing the fall series. The winter series is coming right along. And boy, we have a great series for you, from everything from adding small grains to a corn and bean rotation, to pest management and organic vegetable systems, how to do better record keeping for grazing, on and on, everything you can imagine. We've been able to have our farmers share the stories and share the lessons from years of practice. So we hope you can join us for our winter series. We have over 40 Farminars done now since the fall of 2009, and we've definitely had a focus on horticulture in the last 10 years, especially in our organization. So many of our farmer members are coming to us asking for more information about horticulture. And here's our speaker tonight, Ann Franzenburg, on the screen there, talking with listeners at her farm, at her field day, and sharing her knowledge, and continues to share that knowledge with us tonight with an online medium, not just on farm, but online as well. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to do brief introductions from Ann and Adam, kind of set the stage of where they come from, where they're coming from, what their farms look like, and what some of their goals are. And then we're going to have a really good discussion, first focused on Ann's farm, and to get some immediate learning outcomes achieved for her. And then we want to add your questions all the way until the end of the night at 8:30 when we will conclude promptly. That's how it's going to work. We encourage you to put questions in at any time so we can have a record in the chat box, but know that we will answer Ann's questions and her farm focus first, and then add on all other questions after that. We are an open, supportive, and diverse organization, the nonprofit organization Practical Farmers of Iowa. We advance profitable, ecologically sound, and community-enhancing approaches to agriculture, not just one system that benefits one kind of person or one kind of crop, for example, but all kinds. And we share that knowledge all the time. We want you to succeed, and we think a big reason why folks keep flocking to Practical Farmers of Iowa is that they can succeed from the priceless information that they can gain from the network. We have a great network, and we'd love to share that network, share the stories and lessons. Please join our organization, no matter where you are in the country. We've got over 100 members outside of the state of Iowa, folks who tune in like you to these Farminars and really get a lot of value out of listening from farmers share their stories and want to contribute to the organization as well. So we encourage all folks, no matter where you are, no matter where you live, there's something to be gained from membership in Practical Farmers of Iowa. If you're in Iowa or anywhere close in Iowa, we'd love to have you join our annual conference this year, our annual get-together of over 350 members. It's January 12th through the 14th, and there's a Friday night mixer for beginning farmers to be able to meet a bunch of people like yourselves. Great opportunity. And if you register by the 31st, and we actually might have extended that as well. We've extended it to January 3rd. If you register by January 3rd, you will save money on registration. So there's a great opportunity to register early and make sure you reap the benefits. I'll show you some photos of our network. We just had a beginning farmer retreat, an annual get-together. Some of the priceless lessons you get is sometimes not just production, but spiritual and social, and sharing in the struggles of being a beginning farmer and the successes as well. Overcoming challenges together and strategizing, and being a part of a bigger thing than your own farm is always a lot of fun and very encouraging. So we encourage everybody to, no matter where you are, to network. If it's online, if it's on farm, if it's at our conferences or workshops, there's learning to be had, and we want to be a part of that. This is a shot from Richard Wiswall, our speaker, who we had a great session with this December. He wrote the book Organic Farmer's Business Handbook, and he was he was the speaker of the Next Generation Retreat, and a great opportunity to share his wisdom with beginning farmers. So let me get out of the way and bring in Anne Franzenburg into the conversation, and then Adam Montri, and then we'll have a great discussion and conclude at 8:30. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to put your be sure to fill out the viewer count in the bottom right corner, as well as enter in your email and location in the chat box. So Anne, if you want to turn on your microphone at this time, I'll pull up your slides and you can begin. Anne might be having some trouble getting the microphone going. Let's just check in with her real quick. There should be a mic button at the top of your screen. And if you click that, it'll turn green. And we can always go to Adam first. And you can call me on my cell phone and we'll troubleshoot if you're having troubles. Adam, let's go to you first. I'll get on the phone with Anne and get her mic working. And so I'll pull up your slides. Very good. Adam, you can turn on your microphone and you can
all right,
your introduction, and I'll get Anne. All right, sounds good.
Sounds good. You can hear me? Everyone's all right? All right, great. So while they figure out what's going on with Anne's, we'll just go ahead and hop in here, and if she gets it all set up, just holler out and we can switch back over. So real quick, so I'm Adam Montri. It's a picture of our farm from last winter. We got kind of our second snow of the year today, and it was kind of nice. I'm ready to have some snow around here. So our farm at home is 10 Hens Farm. We'll look at it real quickly, and then I also work at Michigan State. It's part of the Department of Horticulture and linked with the Student Organic Farm. So, here's a map. You can see, let me find the arrow. I think this is it. Yep. So we are right here near Lansing. Our
Sorry, folks. We're experiencing some strange anomalies in our Farminar setup here. But Adam is going to sign back in. We lost him. And then I'm going to get Ann on the phone. Here she is calling me now. So we tested this out and everything was working great, but sometimes things just happen that are unavoidable. So I'm sorry. I do apologize for the delay. Let me get on the phone with Ann and get her mic on, and we'll be right back with you. So please stand by. Thank you.
All right, how's that? Back. So hopefully you guys can hear me. If not, just let someone let me know you can hear me back here. Yep, great. All right, so sorry about that. So again, we're located in South Central Michigan, and here is an overview of our farm. I guess Google Maps took a bunch of new pictures this fall, which is kind of nice because things are updated now. So on the right, you can see our property. That's it's just 2 acres total. See if I can get the pointer up again. So on the, you can see the 2 tunnels there. The top one is 34 by 96. Below that is a 48 by 26 movable one. And then, yep, so there's the 34 by 96, the 26 by 48. We've got room to do another 26 by 48 right about here before we have some asparagus plantings that start. So what we're hoping is these 2 get together over the winter and have a 3rd one here in early spring or so in time for tomatoes. So over here, to kind of give a scale, we're small. This area here is about half an acre or so. It's about 100 by 200 roughly. And then over on the other side of the road here, other side of the driveway, this is our neighbor's property. They've got about 40 acres, and we're leasing this a little bit more than, well, it's about 2/3 to 3/4 of an acre over here. So I got to go look back at records. We can see what day this was plowed, and because you can see it's half done, and I remember at lunch I went in and came out and did the other half. So you can get an actual date of when this was. So again, we're not very large. Once we added this acre here, or 3/4 of an acre, we're going to be up to about 1.25 acres to, we grow at a friend's house as well on a little bit of property. So somewhere between 1.25 acres and 1.5 acres. The goal of our farm is to not supply our entire income. We both have off-farm jobs that we love. We both have on-farm jobs that we love, and work to find a balance between those 2 that satisfies a lot of things that we love about both working off-farm and on-farm. Then we've got the student organic farm here. So it's kind of my other off-farm job. We look kind of above from there. So it's not exactly a rectangle like this, but it's pretty close. So within this rectangle here is about 10 acres or so. This over here is about 4 acres that's in a transition dry bean project right now that'll eventually probably be part of the student farm. It's certified under our plan right now. And then up front here, you can see half of it is about 1 acre hay grove or 3-season high tunnel that's got some sweet cherries and raspberries as part of a research project with some other folks here on campus. But what you can see is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tunnels right there. 3 that are 20 by 96, 2 that are 30 by 96, and this one is 30 by 144. This one up here is a movable one. It's a 30 by 96. You can see where it's plowed up right now. There's enough for about 4 moves of that tunnel. There's one more tunnel down over here that's not for production but for vermicomposting. So some research happening there. So all in all, we've got about 17,000 square feet or so of tunnel space. And then you can see, these are all field production here, and then a couple fields across the drive here as well. So at home, what we have is we market to one year-round farmers market that runs every Thursday all year round. It started 2 summers ago and is run year-round from the get-go. That was part of the plan. And then we also sell consistently to 2 restaurants, usually twice a week. They've more or less bought us out. As of now, we've got some carrots and some potatoes left, but otherwise we're sold out. And so that's one of the reasons we need to add another tunnel next year. And then, so we're somewhere, depending on our sales, between $500 to $1,000 a week, something like that, depending on the time of the year. So Anne's mic's working. Luke, do we want to switch over and have her pick up, or do you want me to go through this? Oh, okay, after the intro, Luke says. So, and then the student farm, we have a year-round CSA that runs 48 weeks of the year. We take off the 3 weeks between Christmas and about the second week or week and a half of January. And then we also take off spring break, not because we don't have anything growing at those times, but more because a lot of our clientele, a lot of the CSA shareholders are faculty or staff on campus, and they tend to be away at those times. So we have that. We had another 40 summer shares that run in the summer only. And then we have an on-campus farm stand and that runs 6 or 7 months of the year depending on the weather. And then we also do some sales into a couple of the dorms on campus. So we've got questions then. That's just a quick intro of kind of the 2 farms that I spend most of my time at. And I think now we can turn it over to Anne, and then we've got some questions to go through that she had sent earlier in the week.
Okay, great. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. And I was telling Luke that I used to teach French over live interactive television, and all the other technical people that worked with me sort of made fun of me because I had this nasty, bad aura when it came to computers and electronic equipment, so I guess that's what was happening. My husband and I started farming in 1992, and when we moved back to farm with his parents, we farmed a conventional Iowa farm. We had corn, soybeans, a farrow-to-finish hog operation. And it's kind of humorous now to think about it, but at the time, land rent we considered to be really high, and also the price per acre we considered to be really high. So we weren't interested in going into a lot of debt to purchase more land or to farm more land. So we were looking for a way to add more value to the acres we farmed instead of just adding more acres. And our goal is for us to earn our income totally from farming. And in 2009, I did retire, so to speak, from teaching. So we do accomplish that goal. And we do that through a good mix of alternative crops plus season extension, along with our conventional farming practices. So we do have 3 greenhouses. Actually, we have 5 greenhouses, but 3 of them are on the property where we live, and those are the ones where I do most of the farming. And then last spring, we put up
Okay, I'll call Ann and have her sign off and come back in. Sorry about this, folks. This is pretty peculiar, but maybe I'll have Adam jump in briefly until I can get her back on.
So it looks like there are a couple of questions. Why don't we look over to the... If we look over back to the side, there's a question about dollars per square foot. Someone said, they spent $450 and overbuilt one. I'd agree. The high end tends to be somewhere in that $450 to $550. For unheated houses, I think it's important to say what we're thinking or talking about here, at least, is with the hoop houses is unheated and no supplemental light either. If you throw heaters in, it clearly costs a good amount for those. And then the low end tends to be about $250, something like that. If you buy kits, clearly you can build stuff on your own and bend your own pipe. There's lots of stuff out there now that talks about that. But we usually don't recommend that people build them unless they have building experience. So we've seen some that people do it themselves and not have a lot of building experience, and they end up blowing over, and then they say, well, I should have bought one that was a kit already to get going. So I think there's some things about what size to think about. Movable. Some are saying clearly larger and stationary. I think it just depends kind of on what your production ideas are and what you want to do. Most people that we know, so I think you can say it pretty surely that all but one farmer that I know that put up a house has put up another house or is saving money to put up another house. So usually people are thinking about adding more once they see what tunnels can do and how that works on their farm or on their farming operation. So we usually say, well, there's another one about $3. Yeah. So what we usually say is it's nice to go wider rather than longer if you kind of have to make that decision. So if the choice is a 20 by or a 30 by 48 or a 20 by 96, we usually like to go wider, and that's because when it freezes or when it creeps in, the frost creeps in from the side. If you're 20 feet wide and you've got about a foot to 2 feet of marginal space on each side where it gets really cold in the winter, then that's about a quarter or a 20% of your production space. Where if you're 30 wide, then it's still only that foot or 2 feet coming in. So the wider you are, then kind of the more you can, or the more usable space you have, especially if you're thinking about going year round. And then for lengthwise, I say you can always add on length. So if you're only, or if you're already 30 wide and you do 30 by 48, but you want to do a 30 by 96, well, in a few years, whether it's 4 or 5 or 6 years when you change your plastic off, you can go ahead and take the end wall off that you had, buy just bows and a larger sheet of, and purlins and a larger sheet of plastic, add onto it, and you can put that same end wall back on. But if you're 20 wide and you wish you wanted to go 30 wide, they have conversion kits, but they're really pretty awkward and expensive. So we tend to think about going wider rather than longer if you have to make that decision up. Oh, Ann's back. All right.
Yeah, and all you have to do is click the microphone button on the top bar, top black bar of your screen, and then click allow.
There we go. Is that better? Yay, can you guys hear me now? Okay, people are saying yes. All right, so I just have pictures of all these crops that we grow in our greenhouses. Some are big pictures like this. This is the greens. It's there's the leaf lettuce mix here that we plant. I think this is spinach here. And then along the left-hand side of the frame, that is ginger that we're harvesting. And this picture is actually, I think, from a couple years ago. We grow grape tomatoes. Sometimes we have slicing tomatoes in the greenhouse as well, but the grape tomatoes are what we sell into our market. Those go to grocery stores. The greens and the ginger go to grocery stores and restaurants. I do cut flowers, and I think the lilies in this picture were grown indoors. I think everything else is from outside. And I market my flowers at farmers markets, at grocery stores in bouquets, to florists, and also directly to consumers who are interested in weddings and special events. We have blueberries, and that's outside production. Our blueberries are, this past summer was,
Okay, we're going to go to a speakerphone system now. Two boots, and we have a system where we have her call into my cell phone, and I put it up against my microphone. So I'm going to have Anne give a buzz to my speakerphone. It'll just be a moment. Thank you very much.
Well, they're getting that
folks,
set up.
We've got her on speakerphone. Let's.
Okay. All right.
Oh, turn off your speakers.
There, is that better?
Yeah, you turned off your speakers, right?
Yep, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. Now I think you're probably going to have to run my PowerPoint because I don't have any capability to
That's fine.
move it forward. Can you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I guess I was talking about strawberries. We had earlier when Luke was speaking, and he had a picture of me from our field day that we hosted in this fall. We had put up some pyramidal structures that we planted strawberries in. And the jury is still kind of out on that, too, because the production wasn't quite what we wanted it to be. So every year, you have to kind of be messing around with things to figure them out. But the quality of the strawberries was beyond belief. They were very good. Let's see, click to the next slide. And ginger is also a crop that we've grown. Put it in again this year. This will be the third year that we've grown ginger. It's pretty popular. Restaurants really like it. And we do sell it a little bit at the tail end of the market season. It's kind of a good crop because there's some novelty to it. And it's a nice crop. It's fun. What else do we have? And then the medicinal herbs that we grow, we sometimes will start them inside in plug trays. And that's kind of how this whole thing got started, because my husband can't stand to see a greenhouse sit empty at all. So, so it was because of the herbs. That was our first alternative crop that we experimented with. Probably in 1995, I suppose that was the first year we grew them. And this is a field of milk thistle. It's a pretty awesome sight to see from the road. People will stop, strangers, and ask us what we're growing. So, and it's an annual thistle, so it's not even though it looks like Canada thistle, it doesn't come back year after year. So, and I think, yeah, then I talked a little bit about our marketing outlets. We tried not to put all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. So we do farmers markets, we do direct to the consumer, we do grocery stores and florists. I kind of consider those to be similar. And then we sell our herbs on the wholesale market. So I think that's it. Is there any more slides?
That's all the slides. There are a couple questions from folks, if you wanted to address those now or save them for the end.
Okay. Sure. So I see people asking about the ginger. Yeah. Does ginger work well in the high tunnel? Actually, we grow the ginger in the greenhouse because it does take a long time for it to mature. So we started in the greenhouse in usually about March 1st is our kind of target date. If it's really cold, then we hold off on planting it. And then it's heated, you know, we have a couple months where we're heating it, and then it stays in the greenhouse through harvest period, which we usually start harvesting sometime in October. And the stuff that you see wrapped around the ginger this particular year that we grew this, it got really cold really early, so we did put a row cover on it, and we applied heat under the row cover to keep the ginger from freezing. So that's plastic that you see wrapped around it. I think one of the things that they recommend trying when you want to put ginger in a high tunnel is that you pre-sprout it. We did try that this year, and we were not as successful with that as they lead you to believe it can be. So maybe if you're better at pre-sprouting your ginger, it would, you know, the high tunnel would be a good, it would be a good thing to grow in a high tunnel because it loves the heat. You know, in the summer when it's so hot, that ginger just grows like crazy in there. But it does require a really pretty long growing season, 9 months, to really be putting on good size on the tubers or on the roots. So I think I would guardedly recommend it, I guess. I would always encourage everybody to try something in a small amount first before you put a whole 30 by 96 house of it up or something. So let's see. Yeah. I think that's, how do we process the milk thistle? That's a long, involved question, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with high tunnel, so I'm not going to answer that. But the milk thistle is very thorny. In that picture, you would not want to walk through that field because you'd be, pretty well torn up by that. Our dog doesn't even like to go in there to get rabbits and stuff. So, and we have always only burned corn in our corn furnace. We don't do propane. We're going to fool around this spring with trying some other biomass in there.
Wonderful. Thanks for answering those for us, and we'll get to your questions now and make sure you get your time. And we encourage everybody else to listen in and see what you can learn along with Ann. And Adam, you're welcome to join the conversation and once more.
All right, sounds good. So for those of you guys who haven't done a Farminar before, the idea is that Ann sent me some questions, and then we made some slides and put them up here, and then we'll go through them and be able to talk about them and answer other questions that she has. I think it started with 10, and then it went to 13, and then it went to 17. So I think I have 1 through 13 on here, Ann, and then I've got the other ones written down here. So why don't we start with this one? So do we have experience with movable tunnels, and kind of what are the benefits and drawbacks? So I'd say, yeah, we do have experience with them. We have one at home, one at the student farm, thinking about adding another one at home next year. I think clearly the benefits from them are, I think at the top of the list for me is that soil health piece. You get to expose it to freezing and thawing. You get to expose it also to rain and snowfall, so you're getting leaching. So I think that's number one for me. And then close behind it is that crop timing piece. So one of the questions later on asks about how we decide when to pull things out. And a lot of times when we're going from the fall into or summer production, so whether you say tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and eggplant and that into that fall production, for us, we have to get things in, if we want carrots, starting in early August, and then planting runs through about the middle of October. If we don't have things in at that time, we can get them to germinate in later October and early November, but they just sit there and we won't have anything to harvest. So what's really nice with the movable ones is we can keep those tomatoes or other warm season crops going. We can plant the other ones, the cool season crops, for the winter outside, which in August and September and even early October don't like that hot temperature in the tunnels. And then once those are up and established, we can go ahead and slide that off of the warm season crops and over the cool season crops for the winter. So I think there's that. It lets us harvest our warm season crops later into the year. And then in the spring, coming out of those February plantings is when we can start planting again. We start to put tomatoes in April for us, so we can slide the tunnel off of those crops that were established in February and March and are now wanting to be outside because they don't want that cold or that warm temperature in the tunnel, and then they're going ahead and covering the tomatoes. So the same thing, we don't have to pull those cool season crops to be able to plant the warm season ones. That, I think, just leads into that space use and efficiency. And then the access, I think, is nice, that if you are doing any sort of mechanical bed prep or weeding or anything like that, that you can go ahead and move the tunnel off, and it's a whole lot easier to either plow or till or whatever you're doing for soil prep when the tunnel's not in place than if you are trying to do that in place. It's just, it's hard to get a bigger tractor into the tunnels to move around. I think the drawbacks are maybe, required space. You've got to, if you're going to keep moving it, you may need, more space. Like at home, we can only do 2 moves with a 48-foot house because of how our property's set up and, the small amount that we have. So the second one we're thinking of adding, and they'll just kind of go back and forth so they're never shading each other. There's clearly an increased cost per square foot. You've got to have more, more infrastructure, more support, more ground support, and then however they're, securing down to the ground that way, and then whatever type of rail or track system they're riding on just costs more. And then I don't know if it's a drawback, but there's just some more management requirements that go along with it. I think we've known a lot of farmers that have done really, really well in tunnels, both experienced and beginning. And we've also worked with some farmers who maybe had 20 or 25 years experience in field production, and when they went into the tunnel, it was just a whole different ball game. Intensive planting, intensive management, and the movable part just sort of adds another piece to that puzzle. I don't think it changes the puzzle, but it's just more requirements as well to think about what, having that space open, where you're going to move it to, and having that timing down as well. So question 2, what do I think about hay grove or 3-season tunnels? Kind of what are the pros and cons of the hay grove or traditional high tunnels? So for those of you who haven't seen them, a hay grove, here's a picture of it uncovered. That's about an acre there. It's 200 feet by 200 feet, so just under an acre. They're designed as three-season structures in the north, so they can't hold our snow, and in the winter the bow spacing on them is about 10 feet or so, and the infrastructure in them is a lot less. You can go ahead and put on end walls on them, which you can see. Let me pull up the pointer here. So this cross piece right here that runs along the front of them, that you can tack an end wall to, that drops down, and then you have another small piece that covers the half circle up above. So and then in the winter, this is the plastic down in here. It rolls down into these gutters and then gets tarped up for the winter. They do have another one now that is a four-season structure, but I haven't been in one and don't really know a whole lot about them. But I do know about the three-season ones. I think that they're really good for what they're meant to do. I think clearly we can do season extension, we can do warm season crops in them, we can do the perennial crops, and I think that that's a really good use for them, especially where we are. It's pretty hard. People are doing flowers in them, people are doing tomatoes in them, especially in Pennsylvania, in other areas, but for us it seems like more of the farmers in Michigan are using them for fruit production, so especially raspberries. Some I think are thinking about blueberries, some sweet cherries, which Greg Lang is working on, and then more the blackberries as well, and some strawberries. But it seems like for us, we're really humid, and we have a lot of pretty consistent rain throughout the year. We more or less get 3 inches of precipitation every month. And so for us, it's pretty difficult to do some of the small fruit, especially without having to use a good amount of fungicide on them. So a lot of people are looking at these for decreased input costs and as well as organic production. I think they work really well for that, and they work really well for the perennial crops because they need that dormancy period. Right? What we've seen is if we put fruit that needs that kind of 6 weeks below 40 degrees. To be able to flower and fruit the following year. What happens if they're in a 4-season tunnel is that they never get that 6-week period where it's that cold. I mean, yesterday here, our tunnel was venting. One of our tunnels was venting. It was up to about 65 in there. So things that are in there, if it was tree fruit or small fruit, it wouldn't be getting a dormancy requirement. So. And I think also they cost a lot less per square foot to build, so they're somewhere around 90 cents to $1 per square foot. So the idea is that you don't have to go ahead and you don't have to build kind of more than you're going to use it for. So if you're spending a lot of money to build something that's going to withstand snow load, but never have that need to support that snow load or never have a crop in there, then I don't think that it's worth spending that $2 or $3 or $4 per square foot to have something that you only need to spend $90 or $1 per square foot. So there's some questions here about is it 6 foot or 10 foot? I thought they were 10 foot. I can go out sometime and check. They may be 6 feet. They do come in different spacing. So and then. For venting, we're using we try to have a lot of examples at home. We have one that's automated on a thermostatically controlled shutter, or for the shutters and the roll-up sides, and then our movable one doesn't have any electricity to it, so that's all manual. For the hay grove ones, you can do the motors that will vent the ends up and down as well. Or you can do things manually. So those are all, I think, costs that just need to be considered. It costs more, but it's less management. So we tend to go with some automation, especially on that early one when I was still full-time at MSU. And then we weren't on the farm really at all. So during the day. So especially this time of year, we might leave, and it's dark out, and you get home and it's dark out, and it might have been sunny and warm during the day, and we weren't there to vent it. So for our roll-up side venting, it's about $1,800 for the 2 motors and the thermostat that controls them. And for the shutters, I think it's not including, I think the shutters are about 200 or 250 a piece, and then the motors are maybe 100 each, and then there's a thermostat that's maybe $80 to control those. Those are all from Advancing Alternatives, is the company that produces them out of Pennsylvania. But I don't think that you can buy directly from them. They produce it, but then they sell a lot through greenhouse manufacturers. Oh, all right, thanks, Kenny, for clarifying that. So, the question is, what should the spacing be in general? For us, on 4-season tunnels, we space them at 4 feet. So there are a couple that do 6 feet spacing. There's 2 companies out there that I know that do it. And the reason they can do it is because they have a lot beefier ground posts and bows or ribs, thicker diameter or thicker gauge steel, bigger diameter. They're made to support that heavy snow load, so they're not taking the same size of a what we have at 4-foot spacing and just pushing it to 6 foot. As you go further south, I know, it goes to 6 feet, then 8 feet, and I think even, way down south year round, it might be at, 10 feet down in southern Florida and that. So then Anna's asked about what's a typical year inside our tunnels look like, or what are our crop rotations. So we are growing 12 months out of the year. There's something in there all the time. Right now we're pretty empty only because we sold out of stuff, especially the carrots and root crops. We still have greens in there that we're just waiting for them to regrow here. So here's kind of the way we think about it at the student farm. This covers all of our beds and all of our tunnels, those 7 tunnels, and it gives percentages of number of beds and the percent of space that each takes up. So most of this is going for CSA, so we can do a lot of planning of we want this amount, this many weeks, so we need to plant this many beds. The beds in the tunnels at the student farm are set up to be for research plots, because that's what it was early on. So they're not really set up like we would at a lot of production farms. They're 2 feet by, at least in some of the tunnels, they're 2.5 feet by 8 feet. So we have a lot of small plots in there. But we kind of have these categories. So we've got these fall in the upper, grab the pointer here, in the upper left, right, we've got these fall early crops. So those are ones that would be planted in, August, maybe early September. And then they're staying there for most of the winter and into the spring. And then here we have fall ones that are planted late, so that later September into October, and they're going to be harvested out and be done to have that space cleared out and be ready to go for the first plantings in February, which are over here. So these empty beds here are being planted here. So we have these early spring crops that go in, and a lot of them you can see are obviously the same crops. And then down here we have our, spring late or summer, and then they're through the summer, our warm season crops. So they're going into the beds where we had the crops that had been in a lot of time of the year. And they're not all, they don't fall, completely into all these, like we've got carrots, in 2 of the categories and those kinds of things. But in general, that's kind of how we think about it, is the things that go in and stay in long, stay until it's time to pull out in the spring for summer planting. And then the ones that go in late and get pulled out are the first beds to be planted in the early spring. So that's kind of one way that we think about it at the student farm. At our place, we're more kind of working on, and it took us getting this extra tunnel to make it a little bit more easier to do a rotation. So what we have right now is our tomatoes were planted here. This was taken sometime in, I think we moved the tunnel October 14th or 15th, sometime in there. So it was where the arrow is right now. So this tunnel was probably taken, late October, or this picture was taken late October. So we had tomatoes here last year. Our tomatoes will be here this year. Our tomatoes will be here in half the house next summer, so summer 2013, and then they'll be here summer 2014, and then they'll back here. So we kind of have this, 4-year rotation that's going along, like that. If we add another house here, that'll, help us as having some more covered space we can use. And then at the same time, we have, the same similar rotation. So cucumbers were here, if we're talking warm stuff, this year. Next year, they'll be, they'll be over here because the tunnel will be into tomatoes. And then the next year, they'll be here and then here. So kind of have this where they're moving through this tunnel and then over into this tunnel depending on where they're located. Sweet potatoes are in that rotation as well. So they're kind of everything's in a way following in a circle depending on where this smaller tunnel is. And then for winter, we have the same thing. So this year, we have 20 beds in this bigger tunnel. This year we had 5 beds of carrots, a few beds, 3 beds of beets, 9 beds or 10 beds of salad mix. So what'll happen is the same thing, if we had carrots up here, then carrots will be here, the next year, and then here the next year. Same thing. And this isn't a perfect system. It doesn't just flow through that easily. But it does, it does help by having this extra house to let us just be able to rotate a little bit better than we had been. So this is a really hard question. Do I think it's better to choose 1 or 2 high dollar crops to grow in the tunnel or plant a wide variety of crops? I think that that's really dependent upon the market and what volumes you can move. And if you can plant a house in tomatoes, then you can and you can move all those tomatoes, then I think that's one option. But then you have to deal with rotation, throughout the year, throughout the following years that clearly there's a lot of farmers out there doing tomato. But they're kind of, in my mind, I guess you're risking that. It's that dollar reward for that production cost, and I think we're seeing a lot of the grafted tomatoes because of that now. So for us personally, with the farmers market and the smaller farmers market that we do and the 2 restaurants, they want a lot of variety, and so for us, we have a lot of variety in there. I think it does clearly depend on what your market is and how much volume you can move to be able to do that. I know that's not the great answer of saying like this is what you should do, but I think it's kind of how we think about it. So there you can see that's a picture at the student farm. Those are all different beds and all different crops. So we definitely have a lot of different variety happening in the tunnels. So what crops give the most bang for the buck in the high tunnel? And there's kind of this caveat of they might not give the highest yield or command the highest prices, but they're ones that are consistently sell for a good price to our markets. So when I thought about them today, thinking through it, I think that clearly tomatoes are a winner in there. I think everyone who has tunnels knows that the early tomatoes, and we do cherries like on the left, but we also do big red slicers. But I think tomatoes, when you're first to market with them or one of the first to market with them, and you can almost name your price, that clearly is bang for the buck and high value. Salad mix in the top right there. That's kind of our bread and butter. When that's one of the crops that our farm is known for. Probably if you ask people who buy from us what they really look for from us is salad mix. So that's an example of one of the 3 mixes that we do. And then winter carrots really sell for us, and they make money. They don't make the most money. We could plant more salad mix and sell more salad mix and make more money, but the carrots are something that we like to have, 1, because they're incredibly sweet and they taste so great, but 2, it's something extra to take to market and to offer to the restaurants. And so I think at the winter market, when people come in, they're only going to buy so many greens. So they might buy salad mix, and they might buy some kind of cooking green, whether it's spinach or chard or something else like that. And then they might buy a heading green of some kind, whether it's lettuce mix whether it's head lettuce or bok choy or something like that. And so to have something else on the table that's not green, like the carrots, is really nice. People come around the corner at our market to where all the vendors are lined up. They see this bright orange thing. We always put it on the side of the table, that everyone enters from for our indoor farmers market in the winter. And it's like they see those orange, and you just see that they go right to it. And we do radishes, a couple different kinds of radishes. And so I think those, if I had to kind of pick three, I think those would be the winners. Cucumbers are clearly up there also, I think. I didn't put a picture of them on here, but we do them in the tunnel, trellised up. And we're going to do the English varieties, some of the long ones this year that we haven't done in the past. Kathy's asking if we mix our own. We definitely mix our own salad mix. We don't buy the pre-mixed ones for a number of reasons. Not that they're bad or anything like that. Most of what we have in our salad mix is what's in the pre-mixed ones. But we like to do it separately because we do three mixes. We do a lettuce mix, which is just red and green oak leaf lettuce. We do a salad mix, which is the red and green oak leaf plus Mizuna and red Russian kale. And then we do a spicy mix, which are those same four plus red giant mustard and arugula. And what that allows us to do, growing them separately, is to control what's in each one and to have those three mixes. The other thing is if we want to leave something out, like sometimes the brassicas in our late spring plantings will get some flea beetle damage, and that means, especially the mustard and the arugula. So what that means is we just don't have a spicy mix that week. Instead of, thinking, wow, this is all in this mix and we have to pick this out, which we're not going to do, so in that case we wouldn't have any. The other main reason for it is that they have different growth rates. So what happens is when you plant the brassicas, they're usually 3 weeks to harvest in the, say March, April time, March, April, May time, and then, September, October, or maybe early November, but September, October for sure. They're 3 weeks to harvest, but lettuce is 4 weeks to harvest. So if we plant them and they're all in the same mix, then what we end up is bigger brassicas and smaller lettuce, and it just doesn't look like a very good mix to me. It looks like things should all be, I want things to be all the same size. And then, so what we do is plant the lettuce, wait a week, plant the brassicas, and then they're all ready to cut at the same time, and then their regrowth is the same, about 2 weeks at that time of the year, longer as we get into the winter. But what we have then is, it's not because they have so much that they have different growth rates, it's more that the brassicas germinate so quickly that they get up and go for that first harvest. Jay asked what type of radishes do we find popular. So we grow Crunchy Royale is a red one that we grow for market. And then the two restaurants that buy from us love the d'Avignon or the French breakfast ones. So they'll buy the red ones if we don't have the French breakfast, but they love the French breakfast ones. All right, so we also, I think it's important when we start thinking about what we're talking about doing here with the lettuce mix or the salad mix is, thinking about a cedar. And we use the 6-row cedar from Johnny's. I love it. I think it's important. We used the 4-row cedar before it was out. I think that it costs a lot of money for the 6-row cedar. I think it costs a lot of money for the 4-row cedar, but I think it's clearly well worth it. So especially if you're doing any sort of volume. So you can say, okay, this costs $500 to get, and that's a lot of money. And then, but if we say, okay, in each of the beds, we can do about 15 pounds per cutting. So in 3 beds, which is what our 6 parts end up being, one planting of salad mix is about 3 beds for us. So that's 45 pounds at $10 a pound is $450, and we get 3 cuttings from that. So you can start pushing the number in clearly. There's seed costs, there's labor costs, there's other things involved, but you can really, I think personally, you can start paying off this kind of investment really quickly, and it lets us do things more quickly and more efficiently, which is what a tool is supposed to do. So, that doesn't mean that it's the end-all be-all and the only way to do salad mix. We know there's a lot of different ways to do salad mix and a lot of different planters, and that you don't have to have this cedar to do it, or you don't even have to have any cedar. We know people who do it by hand, but for us to do, so that one planting of salad mix is roughly 300 square feet. It literally takes me less than 10 minutes to do that planting and have the right number of seed, the right density of seed, and the right spacing. So I think that, again, it's a tool, but it's an investment, and it allows us to pay, we can pay it back pretty quickly. I think it's important, just like any tool, to remember that, the first time we got on our tractor and attached the tiller to it or the plow to it, it didn't work. It took tweaking. It took practice, and I think that's the same with these seeders or with any seeder. It takes a little bit of time to get to use it. But if you buy it and you don't use it, or you use it once and stick it in your shed, it doesn't do a whole lot of good there either. Kevin's asked how we wash our lettuce. So sometimes we wash it, sometimes we don't. Coming out of the tunnel, a lot of times it's so clean that we just don't even bother to spend the time washing it, and it lasts longer. And it lasts longer than if we do wash it. So the seeder here, it's a 6-row pinpoint seeder from Johnny's. When we do wash our lettuce, we tend to do it outside. We have done it in our kitchen, and we like to do that in the winter when it's cold. We clean and sanitize the kitchen. We have a double sink in there that we dunk it and then spin it. Outside we have the same thing, just bigger basins that we can dunk it in and spin it out. It's never sold as ready to eat, and it's never sold in sealed bags. So those are all for dependent state to state what you can do as far as processed products. But if we seal a bag or sell something as ready to eat, it has to be done in a certified kitchen, and we don't have that. So, what about flowers in the tunnel, especially cool ones, spring ones such as snaps or delphiniums? I say we have done flowers. We're just starting to do it ourselves. I think there's a lot of people out there that do it really, really well. And I think that what we have done are snaps here. Putting snaps in we can do it in late February or that first week of March as plugs, and they just take off and they go. They love it in there that time of year. We definitely get to those 27, 28, even 30-inch stems. They're beautiful. We grow nothing fancy. We grow the rocket mix, and we pack them in there. They're at about 6 by 6 inch spacing, and we pinch them as well. So I mean, it's tight and packed in there, and we really like them. We did Lysianthus this year also for the first time. We can't do them outside in Michigan. They just get too beat up, and they're really short and just don't do well. And those sold really well for us also. So we've done the snaps and the Lysianthus. We've also done the single stem sunflowers, so like the Pro Cut series, and we're packing those in at like 4 by 4 to 6 by 6 inch spacing, getting them out and looking to get somewhere between 75 cents and $1 per stem, tearing them out, replanting them, and away we go. So I think that those are all good options. The delphinium, I know at the student farm we played around with a little bit in like 06 or 07. I think it kind of fell under that same. It's a perennial, so it's got to stay in. I don't know, like I know a lot of people are doing some bulbs where they are planting them and treating them as annuals, especially the lilies. So we'll see what happens with that. So we got a calculator, dollars per square foot for flower yield. I'd say we haven't done that because this is our first year. Last year was our first year doing it. I know that there's people out there that have done that. I think Lynn Bazinski would be someone to look at, someone who's done a lot of that cut flower production, and we're really just learning. Ann's asking what height do we pinch our snaps. So we put them in, just as little plugs, and they get pinched as soon as we feel like they're established. So they're short. I mean, they're definitely below 6 inches, maybe even 4 inches when we're pinching them. And then they're branching, and again, because we've got them packed in, they're so tight, we're getting that 5 or 6 branches off of each one. And it just it's beautiful. It just looks like a huge bed of beautiful snaps. So, and we haven't had a lot of pest problems with them. What we did see this year for the first time was twice-stabbed stink bug on them. So we'll see if that was a 1-year thing. We're going to do them again this year and see what happens. So what do we do to maintain or increase soil fertility in our tunnels? Compost. So that's our only soil fertility and soil health input. We have done other things in the past. We had done some of the Bradfield alfalfa fertilizer. We'd also done some blood meal. last year at home, like a lot of people throughout the Midwest, we had those crazy heavy rains, and our tunnels, our one tunnel at home flooded a few times when it had tomatoes in it, that first and second week that tomatoes were in. And we did end up coming back and putting some blood meal in just because the available nitrogen that was there from the compost that we had put down, we even put more compost down, had just leached down through with that flooding. So, right now we're doing compost. Kenny's asking, what's the purpose of growing these types of flowers other than beauty? Is to sell at the farmer's market for, yeah, all right, answer's only beauty. We'll stay with that. So, clearly it's to make money on them. So we've got compost here. We have mechanized it some. We also, at home, it's all by hand mostly. We don't have a good tractor for turning compost. We've got an old 54 Farmall 300 that it's got a manure bucket on the front, but it's not very good for turning compost. But if you do have a tractor with a bucket on it, we do definitely turn compost at the student farm with a bucket. Although actually you can see the tractor that's used. This is at the student farm. You can see the tractor top back here that we use to turn it. So we also have piles that are this scale so that people can see, look, you can do this by hand. And you can always buy in compost as well. Yeah. So we're putting down rates about get that arrow out of there, about 1 cubic feet for 20 square feet, which are those small beds. Or a better way for me to think about it in my head is that 5 cubic feet per 100 square feet of production space. And a standard wheelbarrow with kind of the front one wheel on the front, kind of wide wide basin, and then the kind of short, that's about 4 cubic feet. So 1 1/4 of those per 100 square feet of production space. So if we think about 1 cubic yard equals 27 cubic feet. So if we have 2,000 square feet of production, we end up with about 4 yards of compost per tunnel, and that's about what we have in a 30 by 96, or what we have in our 34 by 96 because we use the front about 600 feet to its storage because we don't have any other outbuilding besides our chicken coop. So that ends up being somewhere between 12 and 16 yards per year in per tunnel, per big tunnel, which, I think is, relatively, if you're buying it in, could be relatively inexpensive, and if you're making it, isn't a whole lot to, get made. So, and we are doing that, that 4 yards or, 1 or 5 cubic feet per 100 square feet between each crop. We started out at the student farm doing it once a year. I think we've just kind of seen that, we have to add that in more. So the tunnels that we've been growing in for about 10 years now definitely needed that, and we've just kind of gotten into that as a maintenance between each crop. The other thing we do have to add at the student farm, and actually at home too, and most of the farms in Michigan that we know of, unless they're using some water-soluble fertilizer that they can use to some ammonium nitrate or something to control the pH, is we're putting down elemental sulfur each year as well. So the reason we're doing that is because our water here and our aquifers are all limestone, so our well water tends to be high in pH, and over time, without leaching in the non-movable tunnels, we tend to just drive our pH way up. So we have had to do that to control some pH. So irrigation-wise, right, we're mostly using drip. So here's a picture of a farm that we work with in Flint. So the drip, usually 2 lines per, these are 3-foot beds. So usually with 1-foot walkways, so usually 3 lines. There's some farms also that do spinners. So you can see here, the lines up above, and then the spinners are down below. At home, we haven't done that. Because we've done, our water is really high in iron, and at the student farm it's really high in iron too, and we've seen some of the plastic get stained orange because of the high iron content. I mean, it would just take adjusting the drippers and spacing them so that it didn't spray this plastic, but that's definitely another option as well, is overhead, especially for some of the greens and other things. when we get into, for germination as well, when we get into tomatoes and that, we tend to go away from that just to, decrease foliar diseases in the tunnel. So we don't do any foliar feeding. I know John Birnbaum played around with compost tea early on and had some research stuff with that, but we don't do any. And yeah, we tend to use tea tape, although I think there's a number of brands out there that are fine. So tips for replacing the plastic. So Ann said they've had their tunnel for 1 year and had to replace it twice because of the winds. So one of the things, I was trying to find a picture of it. I know I have a better one, but this is all I could find. Is you can see this is a tunnel at Penn State. This piece right there at the end of the tip is almost like a seatbelt material, and it ties in down here into an eyeball on the hip board or baseboard, and then it goes up and over the tunnel and ties in on the other side. And we do those every I think here we were doing them maybe every 4. So you can see here's one at the end, then we've got 1, 2, 3 bays, one here, and 1, 2. I think this bay would have had one then. So that's one way you can do that, and it'll cinch the plastic down. I think doing 2 layers inflated helps against the wind. And then, definitely having some rope on the, outside that's kind of zigzagging up and down or going up and down to keep the sides from blowing out. So we'll get to the question, Jay. That's one of the questions that Ann had, was lengthwise or widthwise for tunnels or for beds. And then the hose back here was hung up on one of the purlins. I think here it was just rested. Here there are little hose. Over here, there's hose clips that it can hang from. It looks just like what you would hang a hanging basket from. We've seen it zip tied up on top of the trusses also, like up here. So lots of options for that. So do I think it's worth the tunnel space to grow perennial crops? I think not in 4-season houses, but I do think in 3-season houses like the Haygroves or the other 3-season houses that we looked at earlier. Here's a picture of some raspberries in one of the tunnels. It's big, beautiful, nice fruit, long harvest. We're almost doubling production per acre in those the tunnels with the raspberry production, and mostly for us that's coming from getting a full fall harvest. We usually get frosted out and don't have the chance to get that full fall harvest. So being able to get that in the tunnel, and then also just the marketable yield is so high because we're decreasing that rain on those plants, and the gray mold is just so much less. Favorite raspberry varieties? I think it's probably, I'm going to default to Eric Hansen, who's in the horticulture department here and does a lot of the work in the tunnels. I know he's got a lot of things up there, so if you just search, just Google Eric Hansen raspberries in tunnels, that'll come up. Marvin Pritz at Cornell and Kathy Demchek at Penn State also have a lot of stuff out there that Eric works, they all work closely together with each other, so they all have recommendations there. Pollination in the tunnels, they're bringing in bumblebees. Kathy's question, Kathy's question about honeybees is from the honeybee people. What we're told is that they don't navigate very well in the way that the light gets bent coming into the tunnels, so that honeybees don't do very well in the tunnels, but that the bumblebees navigate differently, and they do well in the tunnels for pollination. So this is a really nice question. How do we achieve a reasonable work-life balance growing year-round? I don't know how we do that. So here's a picture of our daughter. She's 3 now. We just had another one in October, so we have 2 daughters now. And she's out, and this is a picture of her out in the tunnel in the winter, so you can see that there's snow out here behind. The door's open because it was warm in there. But I don't know how to achieve a really good work-life balance. We try to support each other and make time, like everyone, I think, out there, both farming and non-farming. We've got a lot going on, and we just try to plan and talk and prioritize what has to get done, and that doesn't mean that that happens, but we try to, and we're constantly working on that. I think that's a really big challenge, farming year-round. I think that's a really big challenge, doing anything year-round. Clearly it slows down more in the winter, but I think that I'm seeing this more and more on conference, more and more on conference schedules of finding that work-life balance. And, you know, I don't know. I don't have any answer to that, and I think it's really hard, and I think that it's really, you know, farming period is hard, and it can burn you out, and I think that farming year-round is even not harder, but just adds another thing into the mix. So, what do we do for fertility between cuttings of different crops such as greens? We don't do anything. We put that compost down, we plant, we get 3 cuttings off of them. We could get 4, but I think there's 3 marketable ones off of them. 4, sometimes if it's still in there and we don't pull it out, which we try to do right after the 3rd cutting and replant it. Sometimes we'll eat it, or we'll cut it, pull it out, and give it to the chickens. But there's enough fertility, I feel like, in our compost that we're doing all right between those. And there's enough organic matter in there that we're getting a lot of slow release fertility over time that doesn't require us to do anything between our cuttings of greens. So do we orient long or short, and why? So we mostly orient short. We work with farmers who do it long. Some of the tunnels at the student farm, we do it long, especially in the movable one. But mostly we do this short ways to manage the number of different crops. So for rotation, in my mind, it works really well to think about each of these beds as part of a rotation. So if we've got that block of 5 carrots, that whole block can move to 5 more beds. And we could do it long ways, and it could move long ways. I don't think there's a right or wrong. This just makes a little bit more sense in my head. We're pretty close. We've screwed around with space efficiency if we do long ways, if we do short ways. I think we can get a little bit more production space if we do long ways, but only by 2 or 3%, not a huge difference. And then I think the main reason that we do it, there's 2. One is that for each of these beds, so the tunnel, I should say, is oriented east-west. So this direction over here is north. So this is the south side. So all of our light is coming in here year-round. What we're trying to do is prevent shading. So if we have a big wall of tomatoes here, each bed that comes over is getting shaded. And I know it works. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. But for my mind, each bed is getting shaded, and then also our roll-up sides here are venting. So by having it this way, we can get better air movement, I feel like, across than having a solid wall of tomatoes or other crops that are trellised going across. By the time it gets over here, I feel like that air isn't moving very much. The 3rd big reason is that if you look at each of these beds and then look up at these trusses, so each bed has a truss that it's centered on. And so they're 3-foot, it's 4-foot spacing, they're 3-foot beds with a 1-foot walkway. So each bed has this truss. So what we have is a built-in trellising system. So each of our beds, if we're doing tomatoes or we're doing cucumbers or we're doing something else that we want to trellis up like that, we already can trellis up to the infrastructure of the house. We don't have to buy extra bow or purlins or extra pipe or anything like that and take the time to set it up. So that's the other big reason. And then we get this, what happens is, it's kind of hard to see, I know it's kind of a 2D picture, but, what happens is the sun comes across this way. It's just like we orient our rows of fruit north-south, is we get light on this side of the plant, and then we get light on this side of the plant. So the plants are getting light on both sides, especially on the trellised crops, throughout the summer. So those, again, I know it clearly works going north-south, or it clearly works going the long ways. And there's reasons to do that, but this is just some of the reasons. Those are some of the reasons that we do that. I have seen houses built into a north hillside for geothermal heat. That's I think that works. Clearly, you have some venting things there. You don't have a roll up on the other side, but you can do some things like have a roll up, say here on the south side, and then have vents here like this in the ends, or have bigger doors that open to help vent through. What determines our rotation plan? Mostly what our market's asking for. But we also have to think about what our markets are asking for too. So we're kind of balancing that. A lot of people want salad mix. How do we build that into our rotation? We don't have a great salad mix rotation, since a lot of those are brassicas, especially in the winter. But we do it all right. We do that, and I think this is a really good. You bring that really good point up. The 3-year organic. Having a rotation plan as part of your organic systems plan, I think, is a big question in hoop houses. That we're not certified organic at home. We are certified organic at the student farm. But I think that I'm willing to, or that someone should be willing to push back a little bit and say, okay, we have 3-year or we have this rotation plan that we have to have. So is that rotation plan, should it be a year, or should it be, the Wiedigers were just talking about this as well, should it be time, or should it be number of crops, right? So if we have 1 crop per year in the field in a location, then it's time. But in the tunnel, we might get 3 or 4 crops per year. So we might have tomatoes, then radishes, then spinach, then lettuce, until we get tomatoes again. And so in a way, we've had this, 3 crop rotation. And so I think that there's some leeway there, some way to talk with your certifier if you are certified organic. And I'd be really interested to hear what certifiers would have to say about that. I think in the tunnels, being able to do that for 3 or 4 crops per year changes, what the rotation timeline should be. So there's a couple other questions that Ann sent over that I can go through real quickly here, and I think we're pretty close to time, so we can do them quickly. She asked about companion planting. We don't do a lot of companion planting, but we try to do relay planting or relay cropping, so that when we plant tomatoes, we might plant lettuce, and then by the time the tomatoes fill out and need that space, we can clear the tomato or the lettuce out. It's already been harvested. We do something similar with root crops and peas, like radishes and peas. So we don't do companion, but we do relay. Do we remove a crop based on a calendar or on a performance or production? And it's kind of a combination of both of those. So we're pulling stuff, if it doesn't look good, or it looks like it's exhausted, or it looks like it's ready to be pulled, we'll pull it. But we're also looking at dates and timing as well. What are the advantages of the agrobond if it's only a few degrees in the winter? You can say that we from research that's been done, we can't grow year-round, except for a couple small microclimates in Michigan. The farms are doing it clearly without cover. But even though it's only a few degrees in the winter, that we can grow till about the end of December or early January without any internal covers, and then it just freezes out. So we have to have those. And then, do we have most of our growth set before the cold sets in? Yeah, our scheduling in the winter, our planting is August 1st through October 15th. And then we don't plant much after that. We get things up to size, and we get some regrowth, but it's mostly, or some growth through November definitely, but by December, besides spinach and chard and kale and some of those hardy greens that are regrowing really slowly, we don't get much growth. So I think with that, I can say thanks. I think we've got a little bit of time for questions. So Luke, you want to chime in if that sounds like a plan?
Sounds great. We've got Ann here on speakerphone as well, so she can jump in and offer some checking for understanding if she'd like.
Great. So there's a question about, I'm typing it right now too, but what we use. So for the winter, we use 19 weight, which is 0.55 ounces. Remay makes another one. It's the second lightest, and it's just strong enough, or just light enough that it's fairly inexpensive, but it provides enough warmth for us. So for the planting dates for Creek Ridge here, on Hoop House, .msu.edu, there's under resources, there's our planting schedule on there for when we plant direct seed or transplant the crops in both the fall and the spring. Ann, you want to take the one on insect control, or you want me to take it? Or?
looking at, I don't see the insect control question.
Oh, there's just one. What about insects? Yeah.
We use insect control. We do use some predators, biological control. We're not certified organic, so depending on the crop, sometimes we will very judiciously spray for it, but lots of times we'll do also, mechanical removal of worms and different things like that. So we haven't really had any super, super bad insect problems in our tunnel except with aphids in the early spring, and we just know that you have to plan for those, and we buy parasitic wasps that will eat the aphids. So that's our, those are kind of some things that we do.
I think I'd agree that aphids seem to be the #1 pest in these, especially in the early spring when stuff starts to grow, and maybe lettuce especially. You see a lot of aphids, and it's just you should get on it early and control it in ways that either are allowable if you're certified organic, or other options at your disposal. But they can go from nothing to quick, real quickly. I hate flea beetles. They're kind of the bane of our existence on our farm. We don't have a lot of other insect pests that are really bad, but flea beetles are definitely one of them. And we've moved to just not growing a lot of the brassicas later into the spring, and we switch over to just doing a lettuce mix throughout the spring, summer, and fall outdoors, and then move back inside and do the brassicas again. But flea beetles are a hard one. We do some row cover in the field also to definitely exclude them, but they're not a fun insect. There's a question about early potatoes. So I know potatoes will do well. We fooled around with that a little bit before, but we've moved away from doing potatoes in the tunnels just because we can do them outside fairly well. We don't have a lot of, at least where we're at and where the student farmers, we don't have a lot of Colorado potato beetle pressure as of now. So there's other higher value crops.
Well, if I can jump in here briefly, I wanted to thank our speakers. I know everybody worked really hard to prepare their slides, and I wanted to thank them for that, and encourage everybody who attended tonight to join us on January 10th for our next Farminar on tax preparation for farmers. A great opportunity to learn a little bit more about filing taxes. We're going to have a CPA with this farmer on, and have a good conversation about tax preparation and deductions and all sorts of things like that. And we'll continue weekly on Tuesday nights through the winter until March 13th. We'll have taken just one week off, January 10th through March 13th, 1 week off for Valentine's Day. Thanks again for everyone for coming, and drive safe. I always say that. I always get a kick out of that.